Hey, thank you for joining How to Fill Out an ACORD 125. The purpose of this video here today is to show you all the sections and really what you need to put into each section on an ACORD 125. These forms can be really long, time-consuming, and confusing potentially to new entrants into the commercial insurance space. So the goal here today is to make it really simple and straightforward on how you want to actually fill out these ACORD forms. So just at a glance, taking a look at this form, there are many sections. There are 4 pages. This is created by the ACORD Corporation. This is a nonprofit, I believe founded over 50 years ago, to make data transfer in the insurance industry very simple and straightforward. So we're going to cover here today how to fill out potentially all 552 fields of this ACORD 125 form. This is your general commercial intake form or application. This is the main place you're starting to either go through a quoting process, a binding process, any changes, cancellations, actually issuing policies or renewing policies. So these ACORD forms are the standard here. And today we're going to make them really simple. So without further ado, there's many places you can find ACORD forms. Generally agents, account managers, producers are either subscribing to some sort of platform like an agency management system or an ACORD specific tool to get access to these fillable ACORD forms. There's plenty of efficiency tools out there to make them simpler and easier. And today we're going to be working in Wonderwrite to show you how to get these forms completed. The benefit of this, I do have these broken out by section. It's going to help us explain these much simpler and easier. And then we're going to show you where on the actual ACORD form these sections specifically go. So I'm going to be bouncing back and forth. You're going to see at the top of the ACORD form on page 1, agency. So as I hover over this, you'll see some text as well. This is the agency that you work for or the name of your own agency if you're a producer. So that is where you fill out your agency information. This will be your contact, your phone number, your fax, your email address, and your agency codes and subcodes. So we can scroll through these. These are assigned to a brokerage by a carrier, codes, and then the subcodes would be your producer subcode. If you're quoting with just one carrier, you can throw the actual carrier in there, or if it's a renewal, you'll have the carrier in there at the top. The NAIC code is the National Association of Insurance Commission. This is a code assigned by the insurer. So if you have that, please put that in there. If it's a special program, there's a product code potentially, or if you're working with a broker, there may be a special program you're applying to, so you can throw some of that information in there. So really in this right-hand section here, this is about who you're either renewing with or quoting with, their underwriter information, the carrier information, any specific information about the transaction. Is it a quote, renewing, issuing policies, all that good stuff. As we go to section 2, this is going to indicate the lines of business that you are quoting. So this is this section right here. This is what are we quoting? Is there expiring or renewing premium? That's that premium column there. So just want to make note, this would make you add on additional ACORD forms in certain cases, where I think of like business auto, property, inland marine, crime. There are ACORD forms associated with these as well. There's a total of 852 ACORD forms, I believe. It varies slightly, but this is just your standard 125 to get the initial part of the quoting done. As we go to the attachments section, this is this section over here in the middle. This would be anything else you're attaching to your submission for your quote or your renewal. Could be additional interests that the insured owns or the named insured owns. Could be supplemental applications. So generally when you're applying for coverage, quoting, or renewing, you're going to have your ACORD forms. Then you may have additional underwriting questions. These are called supplemental apps. So you'll see note if you have some of these here, you want to select those either over here or over here. This will just go through some of the various things, other things like loss runs, building schedules, statements of values, and there's an option for other items as well. As we get to the policy information, this would be your effective date. So think of your renewal or expiration date of the current policies. So you want to throw those there. What are your proposed effective dates that you want to bind this on? What type of billing plan is this set up for? Is it going to be direct to the carrier, or does it pass through the agency first? And then we'll start off with the applicant. So at the final part of page 1, there is applicant information. This is going to be, the named insured on the policies, any specific codes associated with them. So we can flip through some of these, your general liability codes, your SIC codes, NAICS codes. You want to put in an FEIN number, business phone number, and then the primary website address. Most underwriters are going to go look at the website. They might have tools that look up these various codes or FEINs to help them find information. What type of entity is this? This is really important for coverage and legality. So you want to note what type of entities you have here. And please note there are multiple options here. So you could have up to 3 applicants. That's why you're seeing 3 boxes there under applicant. You don't have to fill out all 3 if there's just 1 applicant. So just note that it's only if there's multiple named insureds on the policy. That's why you'll want to put that information there. At the top of page 2 is contact information. As we take a closer look at what this is, what type of contact is it? What is their name, primary phone number? How are we getting in contact with them? Do they have a secondary phone number? If you feel like putting that information in there. And then what's the primary email address associated? If there's multiple contacts in the account or multiple named insureds, this is where you could add more contacts. There's 2 boxes there for contact information. With premises information, this is where they conduct business. You'll see at the start of this is a location number and then a building number on these premises. The way this works is you'll have your location. This would be like an address, like 123 Main Street. And then you'll have your buildings on that address. So think of like a building material supplier. They may have 3 buildings on 1 address. So you'd have location 1, building 1, location 1, building 2, location 1, building 3. This is the initial intake form. There are overflow property forms for additional properties outside of the 4 that the ACORD 125 covers. So note there are just 4 sections if needed. And then you have overflow ACORD forms for properties as well. As we scroll through this, where's it located? Do they own it or are they renting? How many employees are working here full-time? How many employees are working there part-time? What's the revenue from this location? How much are they occupying? If it's a renting situation and you're talking about a commercial building, how much of the total are they occupying? Is there any public area? Total building area only applies if they're like taking a small portion of a large building. And then what type of operations are happening here? So I'll leave this hovered text up here. For this example here, we're talking about a metal goods manufacturer. So really you want like 1 or 2 lines of what type of business is being conducted here at these specific premises. This will help your underwriter who's reviewing this ACORD form understand what type of business is being conducted where. As we keep going, nature of the business. So this is more in general. They could be conducting different types of operations at different locations, but more in general, what is the nature of this business? Are they a contractor? Do they do manufacturing? Is this a owner of multiple offices, restaurants, retail? Are they doing some type of service for the community? So you'll note that information there. You would just select, and then if you want to pull these operations down or go into more detail, there's a large box here where you can cover all the primary operations. When did the business get started? This is important. How long have they been in business? This helps gain comfort from an underwriting standpoint of like, hey, this has been in business for a long time. They're solid, they're stable. As we scroll here, this is just be a breakdown. So noting, is this a retail location or a service operation? Or what are they doing on-site versus off-site? And if you want to add that information there. Do they own any other entities that you've added to this ACORD form? This could be a property. A common example is they own an LLC for their properties and they own multiple properties. So giving a description of operations to the underwriter for your other named insureds. That's where this information would go. As we go to additional interests, this is the final part of page 2. This would be, for example, what is an additional interest? These are all the examples of what the additional interest could be. So you want to select if there is one for this named insured. A common example would be a mortgagee or a loss payee or a lien holder. Somebody who they have a mortgage on the property, so there's a bank, and if there's a claim, part of the replacement cost or the burnt down building cost that gets paid to the insured, needs to go to the bank because the bank owns the building, for example. So that's what where an additional interest really could come into play as an example. Do they need evidence of the insurance, certificates, policies? Do they get the bill, for example? Think of, if you own a home and your mortgage company is getting and paying the insurance bill. This is just the general information about the additional interests, references, loan numbers, loan amounts, all that good stuff. And then where do they have the interest in, if possible? Is it under boats, vehicles, airports, aircrafts, all that good stuff? Let's go down to page 3. So we're going to get to general information about the risk. So kind of gotten through all the data collection part of it. Now we're on to the general information. These are just going to be some general questions that an underwriter would want to understand about your risk, right? So as you scroll through these, you'll want to answer all these. They're yes/no questions with additional information if needed. So if yes, more information. If no, not more information. So you'll see that there. On this form, this is basically encompassing all of page 3, just additional questions. So noting, if yes, put your information here below. If no, no information required. As we scroll through some of these, they're pretty self-explanatory. So you'll just want to go through this and mark these yes or no. This would be after understanding your risk, their exposure, and some questions that you've covered them maybe in a meeting or over the phone. Just scroll through these slowly so you can get a look at that. For remarks, this is just general policy remarks. Anything you want your underwriter to know or the carrier to know about the risk, or processing instructions like special instructions. This is where this would go. For prior carrier information, this is at the bottom of page 3. You have up to 3 years prior carrier information for general liability, auto, and property, and then one other coverage there's room for. You can attach this on another sheet and select that in the top of the attachment section. This would just help whoever you're quoting or binding with to understand the series of premium and how it's gone over the past 3 years for these lines of coverage. These are your main lines of coverage for certain types of risks, and you'll just enter that old policy information. As you get down further, you'll see there's a loss history section. Generally you would attach this as you go to quote new business or renewal business. In some cases, you're collecting the old loss runs or loss history information from prior carriers so that the new carrier or the person quoting or the person binding can understand the risk that they're assuming and calculate that in, right? So you can note the top 3 claims here. There's 3 slots to put information about the claims that could have occurred. You can also attach this information, note that at the top, and then send it in with your submission. Finally, you're going to get to the signature section. These are your important legal disclosures. So page 404, you'll want to read through this. There's some specifics that are applicable to certain states. Review this in detail and make sure you answer this stuff correctly, and you're following all the proper procedures that are outlined in the ACORD form. As we get to the bottom, there's an additional notes section, but mainly you're going to be working on signature, which would be producer's signature or account manager's signature. That would be your signature, whoever's the producer on this using their codes, the applicant signature, date, and national producer number. That is the wrap up of the ACORD 125 as you walk through and the various sections associated. Again, we appreciate your time in watching this. Hope to be sharing more information about how to fill out ACORD forms with ease going forward. Thanks so much.